Hello and welcome back to another episode in my Factorio series in which we are building, or at least attempting to build, my very first Mega Factory. My name is Azrael. Come along with me as we make our way through the dead forests and continue on our adventure. Alright, we are down here in the brand new defensive perimeter uh, blueprint area. This is just sort of like a staging area for now. This is not going to be the actual defensive perimeter. But I am just going to adjust a few of the circuit conditions. I realized that I don't have a way to refill the RoboPort with fresh construction bots in the event that they get destroyed while repairing a wall or a turret or something. So I want to set that up and make sure that it's going to get that in there. And another thing that occurred to me is that I don't want the trains to be called whenever we are just like one item short of what the ideal setting is going to be. So I'm actually going to adjust the top two, or actually rather it's the top arithmetic combinator up there, to only call the train when we have half of the ideal number or less. And then of course the bottom set of combinators here are tied to the stack filter inserter that feeds my supply chest, so that it will actually move the ideal amount into the chest. So it's still going to refill the chest with the ideal amount, but it's only going to call the train when it is less than half of what it should be. So if that makes any sense whatsoever, I'm just up here. I'm going to use another constant combinator to remind myself of what I need to have delivered to these things in order to keep them running. Obviously we want ammunition, repair packs, and the turrets. I'm thinking I also want to have a few stack inserters and some medium power poles as well, just in case any of them get destroyed. And I'd like to have the whole thing be able to be up and functioning no matter what kind of attack the biters throw at us. So I'm just getting all those values worked out there. And obviously it does not have enough according to my values yet. So I'm going to rebuild this blueprint with all of these new changes. And I'm pretty sure this is still not going to be the final time that I do this. There are a few other little tweaks and adjustments that I forgot to add in this iteration that I only just now remembered here in hindsight. But it's getting close. We're probably about 95 to 99% there. And then it's just a matter of making sure that the factory is actually going to produce the things that it needs to resupply. In order to do that, I need to go back up here to my my miscellaneous facility. First of all, I hate running around here, so I'm going to plop down a whole bunch of stone walkways. And of course I run over the belts and they push me off to the side a little bit. But it's been a while since I've dealt with stone bricks, so I kind of forget exactly how it works. But I got myself all figured out there. And then of course I run out, because you run out of stone bricks for pathways ridiculously fast. And eventually I will get all of these paths cleared of obstacles, as much as I can anyway. There's a few issues down here in the miscellaneous facility where I did not give enough room between the bus and the rack space. So there's still a bit of an issue there. The pathway may have to be reduced down to 3 instead of 4 tiles wide. But other than that, everything should be working okay. Now the next thing I want to do is get robot production up and running, and in order to do that, I need to have batteries being produced, and in order to do that, I need to have sulfuric acid on the miscellaneous main bus. I'm going to go over here and take care of that right now. I just need to get all of these pipes fed over in a way that is going to allow them to get there. Alright, just have to change a few things around. I know that those are rather dirty looking hacks, but it gets the job done, and that's all I'm really focused on right now. The aesthetics of my factory are backseat to functionality, so just a couple of times where it has to override. Anyway, in order for battery production to be produced, I've got the sulfuric acid over here. I'm going to try to bring it up. I see some attacks going on up here. A bunch of biters almost took out one of my laser turrets, which would have been unfortunate because I don't think I have any in my inventory yet. So I'm going to reinforce it with a couple of gun turrets up there, just to make sure that the defenses hold, because that is the entire right-hand side, or the western half of my factory, doesn't actually have any protective walls closing it in. So all the more reason for me to get this defensive perimeter up and running after I've been talking about it for so long. Alright, there was the iron and copper plates. Now I'm going to bring up the sulfuric acid and, of course, once again fix that one chemical plant on the side not getting any. And there was an attack going on somewhere, I think. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just going to get the batteries down there, make sure everything is going. Alright, I'm going to fill in a few more of these pathways down here so that I can at least get down to my trash pile rather quickly. Alright, and then I'm going to head over here to, first of all, my western perimeter, where there is a bit of damage going on, but nothing too serious. But over here in my coal mine, the biters did in fact destroy one of my turrets over there, so I want to bring that all back up and running again. And then these guys are just too close for comfort, so I'm going to take care of a few of these guys. And I do understand in the latest Friday Factorio Facts, they're talking about doing a complete revamp of the combat system, because as it is right now, the flamethrower is just too overpowered, and it doesn't scale well as you progress through a game. You know, you start out with some pretty pitifully weak weapons, and then move up, but it doesn't move up at the same scale as the enemies, and then eventually you get the flamethrower and suddenly it becomes way too easy. So yeah, they're going to take some time to rebalance that and make the things like explosive, like grenades, and the tank cannon shells a little bit easier to make, and stuff like that, so that you'll have a wider range of weaponry. You won't just be relying on one thing the whole time. So again, before the 0.15 update drops, I would like to get my defensive perimeter up and in place, so that I don't have to deal with relearning a combat system at the same time that I'm trying to drive biters out of my territory. I can have a little bit easier of a time learning the new mechanics. So that is sort of a priority. If it wasn't already in the last several episodes, it certainly is now. Alright, I'm going to continue this path up over on this side. And once again, I got moved around by the belts, even though I was trying to be careful enough to avoid that. Oh well. It's easy enough to remedy. Alright, now that I've got battery production well underway, I also need to get these electric engines onto the main bus, which should be simple enough. I just need to run a belt down here, and I might as well add them to the same the same belt that is taking the batteries. Just put them on the other side. I'm going to upgrade all of these to level 3 assemblers, and that is still really slow, so I'm going to put some speed modules in there to get it flowing. And then I'll also realize that they're not flowing down the main bus. That's because down here they got cut. Ah, there they are. Coming in nice and neat. Alright, time to build some more of this, and I run out of stuff in my inventory. I need some pipe to ground and some underground belts. And I also realized while I'm over here that the yellow level underground belts actually do not need gears, even though I had it set up to feed it with gears. And the same thing for the yellow level splitters. So this is just taking up unnecessary room and unnecessary production. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade those boxes to storage chests so that my logistics network can use all those nice juicy gears. Alright. And then over here, this is going to be the actual robot creation facility, whatever you want to call that. The robot rack. It sounds like a Daft Punk song. Anyway, and in order to do that, whoops, my inventory is completely full. And I just dumped a whole bunch of electronic circuits out onto the ground. I might as well tell my my robots to get all the wood out of my inventory. It's about time I started using those trash slots. Alright. Anyway, the robots, first of all we need to make the robotic frames, the flying robot frames, and they need electronic circuits, steel, batteries, and electric engines. So I'm going to put the electronic circuits and the steel on one belt. I try to figure out a way to get those to merge together, and I just made it one tile too short. There we go, there's that. Try to move it as far to the left as possible. And I'm going to bring up the other ones. And fortunately I already had them on the same belt, so not a big problem. And there we go. Now I just need to bring it across the path. And now the next question is, how do I want to arrange these assembly machines? And this is going to go through a couple of iterations here, mainly because I'm just figuring this all out as I go. The concept that I've been using in all of my racks is to build them from left to right, as the orientation is here, and so it matches the flow of the main bus. But then I need to get the robotic frames that take the longest to craft. So I want to have at least 4 assemblers dedicated to that, and then my idea is that they'll put the frames out onto a belt. The belt feeds into a box, and then the box feeds into 2 different assemblers here. One is for the construction bots, and one is for the logistic robots. But then I thought maybe I'll just have 2 feeding into each one, like that. And I need to create some more roboports. And I just happened to remember there were several boxes over there full of gears, so I picked up a few of them. But now I'm trying to figure out how to get both of those assemblers to feed into a roboport without exceeding the width of this rack space. I know that I could do it easily if I just decided to ignore it, but I don't want to because it works so well and it makes it such a universal thing. So I figure instead I'm going to do a top-down topography over here. And with a little bit of underground belting, I can actually get this to work. So it's going to feed into the frame assemblers at the top. And just like that, kind of looks like a bowling pin layout almost. So hopefully we can get a strike with this. Alright, that was a really bad joke. Thanks, Dad. Anyway, okay, so the logistics robots, I have no problem feeding them into the roboport, but the construction bots, as we recall, are going to be needed for the defensive perimeter, so I can't just put them right into the network like this. I need to be able to load them onto a train, which means that I need to first output them into a storage chest so that I can direct them over to the loading facility for those trains. But otherwise everything is going. I'm going to put some speed modules in there to make sure those frames cook up nice and quick. I forgot that the robots need circuits as well. So there's one for the construction bot, and I just need to get one over here for the logistics bots. And I was trying to figure out how to get them off of my feeding line here. I'm going to go under, but then I remember I can use an underground belt to just get the electronic circuits over here. So that'll feed that into there. And then, of course, I remember they don't use electronic circuits. They use advanced circuits. So I need to just bring those up off of the main bus. I tend to make things more complicated than they actually need to be. So there we go. Everything seems to be working just fine. Alright. And now I'm going to connect this logistics network to my junk box network so that we can actually start building the factory's logistic network in proper. And right there, it just happens to connect the two and allows access to several of the intermediate miscellaneous racks as well, so that I can upgrade all of them to logistics-friendly services. Now, I do want to have construction robots loaded into the main logistics network as well, but I only want it to happen at a certain point. So I'm going to set up a few circuit conditions. First of all, the inserter feeding out of the assembler is going to only put robots in there as long as there's more than or less than I believe it was 200 or 300 that I set it up for. I honestly cannot remember right now. And then the second inserter will feed in as long as the logistics network only has, or if it has less than, I believe it was also 100 robots there. That way I'm not just building up an excessive army of construction bots, because I don't feel that I'm going to be relying on them all that much. Now, the logistics robots, on the other hand, I do want a considerably larger number of them, but I decided to go ahead and put a limiter on that box anyway, just because, while it is nice to have a factory with 1,000 robots running around, knowing me, I'll forget to turn the switch off eventually, so that it'll just keep loading it up, and I'll eventually end up with like 50,000. And that would just be an absolute nightmare. Maybe down the line, when this actually becomes a proper mega factory, 10,000 logistics robots won't seem all that crazy. But I can always go back to that limiter and adjust the number later on. And in the meantime, I just don't need 10,000 robots sitting there idle in the Roboport. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. In the meantime, I'm over here in my belt factories and getting everything adjusted and connected to the logistics network, so that when anywhere in the factory there is an excess of, say, yellow or red belts, they get fed into the system there instead of just wasting space somewhere, so that they can actually still be put to use later on. And I'll probably end up doing similar things to the other sections as well. I'm going to go ahead and put some more roboports around here just to make sure that the coverage is complete. And another thing I'm going to need, I love that, all those robots just took them and moved them over to my junk box directly instead of putting them in my inventory. But of course they're also going to come over here from the other parts of the facility to lay down that new thing instead of using my own construction robots on that. That's alright. That's something that can just be done on its own time. I'm going to be busy up here building a rack that will build me more roboports, because the defensive perimeter is going to need 3 roboports for each outpost, and I'm probably going to need at least 30 to 40 outposts to cover in my intermediate square. So I'm going to need a lot of roboports, so I might as well set up a place over here that is going to build them for me. Now, roboports need a ton of gears, and I know that I talked about having all those sweet juicy gears back in my other boxes. There's an attack going on over here in my my oil facility that was destroying things because those turrets had run out of ammunition, but that problem's been fixed now. Anyway, despite the fact that I have gears already sitting in boxes essentially not doing anything, I can't always rely upon that. So I'm going to have this just constantly cranking out gears. You can see I've got 4 assemblers crafting up gears, something I learned from my belt factory, just to have a whole bunch of them surrounding the central assembler so that it can craft those gears up as fast as it uses them. And then the other thing that it needs is advanced circuits and steel, and it needs a lot of it. I believe it's 45 units a piece. So that's going to feed up here into this assembler. I could probably even make this more efficient. Put a stack inserter on there so that it can feed that up really quickly. Roboports do take a while to craft, so I'm not too worried about only using one stack inserter to feed both of those items in. There you can see everything's running, and then it's actually building up the roboports there and putting it in. Alright, that is going to be the end of my episode today. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Azrael. Never stop building.